This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your host, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. So today we're going to be talking about creating and sustaining momentum, right? So this podcast explores the art of creating and sustaining momentum in our lives.
And business lives.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's I thought it was crucial because we always talk about whatever we're going through, and so we've had a lot of momentum in all areas, and so I thought it'd be good to talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
What it took to create the momentum, and then what we do to try to sustain it and keep it going.
Yeah. Right? So let's get started.
So we just celebrated. Today's actually our anniversary. We celebrated. You saw on the. Last week's episode.
If you have not tuned into last week's episode, it's definitely one to look back at. One of those spontaneous moments in Napa Valley.
In the bathtub.
In the bathtub.
So if you want to see us in the bathtub, I will check out their YouTube, and you can check us out.
Yes.
So, we're wearing bathing suits just in case you don't want to see me in the bathtub. So.
Okay, moving on.
But no, we're and on that note, it was our 20th, and so that takes momentum to keep keep it going for 20 years. They definitely had to
lots of change, lots of challenges, all these things that you go through when you're creating momentum.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about why this is crucial and why I think it's momentum creates and transforms dreams into reality, right? It's really the juice, right? That makes it happen. So
yes.
Let's get into it. So we have some 5 points we're going to go over and on creating and sustaining momentum. But first, really momentum starts with having a clear vision and setting meaningful goals, right?
Yeah.
You got to know where you're headed to in order where to run to, right?
Yeah.
Where to start
you have to know where you're going, right? And what you need to find out, what is your purpose? Like, what are you looking to accomplish, right? In the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And setting those SMART goals.
Yeah. And I think we did a podcast on this, right? On SMART goals. And I think you brought it up about specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goals. And that's what SMART stands for. But, we are big proponents of EOS. So in our business lives, EOS really helps us provide the curbs that keeps us, on going a straight path or on the street, guiding towards our big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And that's where, so you really got to know before you really start the momentum and start pushing. Because once that ball gets moving, you got to make sure that's headed in the right direction, right?
And I also think that, in order for your teams to get behind you, you have to have a clear vision and goal, right? And I work with a lot of businesses, a lot of franchises, and that's one of the things that we go through. What is your vision, right? And does your team know what your vision is? Yeah. Because how can they stand behind you if you don't know?
That's a great point. Because I think, the team's not on board with you. You can't do it alone, especially if you're building a big scalable business. You need a team, and they got to get behind you.
And that's really the power of EOS as well. Is it kind of aligns your team together, which really drives the rest of the organization.
Yeah, and on a personal note, I think whether it's weight loss, whether it's or fitness, whether it's having a great marriage, a great relationship with your kids. All that also takes a vision, right? And we've talked 100%. A lot about, there's several episodes, if you go back and look, we've talked about setting visions and goals and
having a vision board. If I remember, when we first got started in our business, we had all these dreams and we had all these goals, right? And we put them all down on our vision board because we had to see it. We had to picture it, right? In order for us to get there, we really had to visualize it.
Correct. And so, just to give you reference, do we still do this today? Absolutely. So right now, I have personally a vision. I want one more step for our personal residence, right? And so and it takes a while because it's a big step, a big financial commitment, but it's, and I've been looking at, so I have it to the countertops, to the kitchen, the ideal kitchen I want, the ideal, and this is for me personally, but like, I'm just like, I have a strong vision, and I know, because it's always happened in my life before. And it might take longer than I thought, and this one's taken longer, but it's like, I know exactly the house I want, the kitchen I want, the bedrooms, bathrooms, everything, and I have it already all visioned out, already planned out. And I know someday I'll be in that house. Yeah. Yeah. And it's always happened. So, just know we still do this today. And it's still, and in our marriage, we still plan and draw out like how we want our marriage to look in the next 10 years. And Joni and I talk about that, like what our 8-year runway looks like for her, her and I in business, and what we're going to do personally after that. And, whether we exit or whether, we have goals and dreams that we want to set and where we want to head, and what we want to do once the kids go on to college, and kind of our dreams and goals as a couple.
Absolutely.
So, the second one is resilience is the key to sustaining momentum. And so this is a big one, right?
Yes.
Because once I think there's, I went to school to be a mechanical engineer, and did a lot of physics classes, and there's friction, right? And so like if you're trying to get a ball moving, there's gravity, there's obstacles, there's all this stuff to get that ball rolling, right? And it's hard, right? And it's hard to get that momentum. And I think that's why we brought this podcast, because we've been, just give you a point of reference, is we started a new division within our property management company of taking on multifamily doors, and it's been hard.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, right? And again, it's one of those where we have to get the entire team on board and aligned, right? Because it's a new thing.
Yeah, and so just so you know, Joni and I invested $18,000 in joining a mastermind on multifamily, and so and it's a weekly meeting that we were part of, and just to learn what we didn't know about multifamily. Even though we've been managing properties for years, we wanted it. It's a different animal. It's a different asset class, and so we really wanted to get good at it. And so everything from, we had to learn our sales tactics and our sales approach to the pitch, and like what these asset managers want to hear and see, and what reports they want and what numbers they want to see. So like, I mean, it's revamping our whole sales process just for this. It's redoing our whole the way we manage the units and manage the properties. And so we had set up a new pod for this, and be honest, we failed our first time, right? We weren't successful. We had the wrong people in the wrong seats, correct? To get, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it takes resilience, because what is this, a year and a half later? We're still at it, and we're not there yet.
But in anything, I always tell this story that, the only difference really between Shawn and myself and others out there is that we have fallen flat on our face more times than we can count, right? But we get back up and we keep going, right? Are there going to be challenges? Absolutely, there's going to be challenges, but one of our core values is you appreciate the challenges and the results of overcoming them, right? So you can either appreciate the challenges, grow from them, or we can quit.
Yeah.
We all have a choice.
And we've had many roadblocks even over the last year. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to quit and throw in the towel? Are you going to just plow through it and break through it? Are you going to go around it? Are you going to figure out, and we together have figured out a lot of times through these roadblocks or through these times that we need to be resilient. You and I do a really good job of coming together, and together we're much more powerful to get through that, or get over it, or climb over it, jump over it, whatever we got to do. We figure out a solution, right? Even Brett got involved.
We always say that we're better together,
Yeah, we looped Brett in a couple of them this past year, and like, man, between the three of us, we we figured out a solution. We made it happen.
Nothing's gonna stop us.
Yeah, so it was, and we had fun with it, kind of. I mean, but we made the best of it.
Right.
So a supportive network of friends, coworkers, mentors, accountability partners plays a crucial role in doing that. Because a lot of times there's times where I hit a roadblock, or I hit a resilient time, and I want to throw in the towel, or why are we doing this? And you'll be there to support me and pick me up, and then vice versa.
Yeah. And then that goes for, you mentioned, outsiders, our friends. there's times where you need a sounding block too, not just your spouse to like tell you, right, you want to go to Brett or somebody else to say, hey, yeah, you're making the right decision, right? Somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of. Right. So it's always good to have somebody.
Yeah. The third point is consistency is the secret ingredient, right, to momentum. Right?
That's right there is key. I mean, I remember when we got started, and I always tell the story because when we moved here in 2005, it was the height of the foreclosure market, and we moved here to buy pre-foreclosure properties, right? And we had maybe, $20,000 in our bank account. That's all we had when we moved here. Mm-hmm. And we went out there, started knocking on doors, door after door after door. It might have been 150 doors before we actually got our first deal, right? Mm-hmm. But we stuck with it. No matter what, yeah, there was times we wanted to throw in the towel, but we stuck with it and kept consistent with it.
It's really there's times you're not going to feel like working out. There's times you're not going to want to make that extra effort with your spouse, your children. There's going to be times you don't want to eat well, even though you're trying to lose weight. And then in business, it's all about consistency, and it's just day in and day out, grinding it out, making
treating
those
it
calls
like a job.
When we started the fund last year, that was difficult. Number one, it was an uncomfortable conversations I hadn't had to make in a long time as far as raising money. Mm-hmm. But it was, it's all about consistency. Mm-hmm. It was just calling, and you get a lot of no's and a lot of no's. And, people had money, had money sitting in the bank, but it's like just no after no. And it's just until you get those yeses, it's just a consistent effort. And so that's just part of business. That's just part of anything in life is consistency.
Putting in those reps. I like the book, The Power of One More, by Ed Milet, where, he talks about just making that one extra call, even when you don't feel like it,
The one extra rep. I always think of that when I'm working out. Just, I can do one more.
One extra lap, even if you don't want to do it, right?
And, but it's tough. And there's days where it's really tough, and you've been knocked down, but that's when you got to be consistent.
Right.
And that's
when it matters.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So start small, gradually work yourself up. But consistency is the key to momentum. And that we're going back to that reference with the multifamily division and all that we started. I mean, it's just been consistent. We've been consistently pitching these multifamily owners, and we've taken on some just real shitty accounts because we were trying to get the reps, right? We're just took some C-class properties that we shouldn't have. And it's like, man, but we're getting the reps, and then managing C-class properties. And it was like, man, this is tough. This is awful. Why are we doing?
Can't we just get some of these A and B classes?
Yeah, there's just literally going to some of these units, and you see the sky, and there's people living there, and you're like, what are we doing here? And the city wants to shut us down on everything, and it's like, why are we doing this? Let's just go back to single family homes. But we're getting the reps, right? In management, in inspections, and all of it.
And each time we just get a little bit better, right? Over time.
Yeah. So it's just, and now all of a sudden we've got some really good momentum.
Where we thought, well, shoot, I don't know, we want to do this anymore, right? And then all of a sudden, bam, 5 come. We're like, all right, I think we're ready for this again.
Better owners, better properties, nice B, class properties. They're getting better and better, and they're easier to manage. And now we got better reps. We know how to handle them. We know how to onboard them. We know how to
have better processes and procedures from what we learned from the prior ones. So,
but it's all about creating that momentum. Is just creating that consistency. And so guys, sometimes it takes a lot longer than you think. And maybe you might have been right around the corner from success, and you just got to keep going, keep doing that consistent, keep making those calls, keep making the pitches, even though you get told no. You're usually right around the corner from the success. And that's all those 10 years of running houses and knocking on doors. Oh. It was you never knew when that it could just, like you could say, it's hot today. I'm just going to, and it's like that next house.
Right. And then it just becomes, once you get that house, you're like, oh man, I can do it. You gain a little bit more confidence, and the next one just becomes easier, and it becomes easier in the next one. Right. But I'm glad you brought that point up, because I think that a lot of people, maybe quit too soon. They think, oh man, like it's not happening quickly for me or quick enough for me, right? Well, news to you, it's not going to happen quick. Like you have to, it's been 23 years of pounding the streets, right?
Getting a lot of no's, more than yeses.
And still today, we're getting the no's and pounding the streets. So it's not going to get easier. You just have to get better.
Correct. Our fourth point is, one effective technique is to break tasks into smaller, manageable chunks. So as you're creating momentum, I think sometimes you can get overwhelmed, right? If you're looking at the big goal or vision, right? And you can get like, how are we going to do this?
I can so relate to this point, because I know that you always tell me, like, Joni, like, just take it one step at a time. Like, write down what you need to do right now. Right? Don't like try to, sometimes you think, like, man, I have to onboard these 100 and some doors. Like, how am I going to do this? Right. But you really, if you take it in small bits at a time.
And just focus on that, those smaller chunks. And I think don't focus on so much. Yes, you got to know where you're going, the vision, all that. But in the day-to-day or your day-to-day task, just focus today on that one task.
Right. Which I think having, we have the, our planners, right? Which is the full focus planner. And I really like where you write down like your 3 most important things for that day. That's what you focus on.
And those 3, the thing with that is those 3 things are going to move the needle. Those are the 3 things that are going to give you the momentum. So knock out those 3 things first, or make sure you don't leave the day until those 3 things are done. Because that's what's going to give you the momentum.
And the point you just made, those are the things that are going to move the needle.
Correct.
If it's not going to move the needle, those should not be on your 3 things to do.
No. And delegate the other stuff, but make sure you get those small move the needle type of tasks done those days. And don't leave until it's finished.
Yes.
And so like whatever that could be, and it'll get you, if consistently done week in and week out, day after day, you'll get to where you want to be. So nothing ever happens like quickly. And you look at like Kobe's a good example, I always relate to things of sports, but like he always did like 2 days, or he always did that extra one more. And that's what made him such a superstar, was that his work ethic. And it was always, he would always go like, if he had like in the morning, you hear that story about where he was in from like 4 o'clock in the morning for his, and this was before practice. So he had practice already later, but he'd come in himself, work
just
at 4.
Working on his basics.
And people would show up at 7 that had to work out with him, and he had already been there half an hour, full sweat, ready, because he just wanted to do one more than everybody else. And that's what made him such a success. But it's just that little extra effort consistently over time makes you the GOATs, makes you the greatest. And
100%.
Anyways.
We can end it right there.
Yeah.
That was good, Shawn.
What was the next one? No, we're going to wrap it up with our final and 5th point is, remember that momentum is not a constant state. It requires continuous effort and adaptation.
Every day.
You're never done.
Every day.
So don't ever think that, okay, I got it all built and I got some momentum, and then it's like,
I can lay off a little bit.
Because what happens, that ball that's rolling, right? And unless it's rolling downhill, maybe you need to guide it a little bit so you don't go crashing into something, because that could happen.
That's true.
But a lot of times it's just you're rolling down the street, right? And what happens? You start to lose speed.
Yes.
And just slow, because there's gravity. There's competitors that are trying to stop you. There's evil forces that are trying to stop you. Whatever. It just could be life. And that ball is just going to slowly stop spinning, and so you got to keep behind there, keep pushing it, keep pushing, keep giving that momentum. And so it's never over. It's never over. And so, and that's the hardest thing with salespeople. And we Brett and our team does a really good job of, like, they come off a great month, and it's easy. Like we came off, how many doors did we bring on last month?
Agents too is another one. They get those commission checks.
Yeah, it's like,
and they're like, oh man, I got a $3,000, $5,000 commission check. All right, I'm gonna take a week off. I'm gonna go vacation, right? And then they come back and I'm like, man, like, where was I? I need to get back started. I need to create that momentum
and
again.
They lost all the. I've seen that. That's a huge point because I've seen it, especially with salespeople. Is they get a big check, or even entrepreneurs. I've seen it with tons of entrepreneurs. They'll have an incredible month, right? And we were just talking with the people in Rooter that we visited. A couple of people have had their greatest month, right? There was like 3 Rooters that had their greatest month last month. And not saying that they did this. I'm just saying, like, a lot of times you come off and you're like, let's celebrate. Let's go take a break. That was a lot of energy. And it's like, no, you create all this momentum. Now that's the time to build on it.
Yeah.
And that's how great people blow up and really create extraordinary results is because they double down.
Right.
And they keep, if you consistently double down, all of a sudden it exponentially grows. And same thing with sales. Like, yeah, you have a great month. Like, now it's not the time to celebrate it. Now it's time, let's go harder. Let's double that. That's how we've always seen it. But that's I'm not saying not to rest. You need rest. But,
and I do believe in celebrating the wins. I think that's but celebrate it and get back to work.
Absolutely. So, and stay flexible. Embrace the journey. And know when to pivot if needed. There's times that sometimes you just need to pivot.
And have fun in the process, right?
Yes. So we want to encourage you all to harness the power of momentum and go out and achieve some remarkable things out there and create your own momentum and sustain it. So love to hear your guys' success stories and your guys' momentum that you create in your lives, and looking forward to celebrating those wins with you. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
See you, everyone.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.